It was April 10th, 1912. Richard had just departed from Southampton, England, aboard the most famous ship of the time, dubbed the Unsinkable. Since he had just witnessed a near collision with the SS City of New York, he decided to write to his wife and report the unfortunate and frightening event. "My dearest Sal," he wrote, "we got away yesterday after a lot of trouble." Little did he know that a mere 4 days later, both his pen and the ship he was on would be lost forever at the bottom of the North Atlantic Ocean. Was this some sort of bad omen? Did Richard actually foresee what was about to happen to the ship he was on? In case you haven't figured it out by now, Mr. Richard Geddes was aboard the Titanic on the day that he wrote the letter to his wife. On April 14th, 1912, the ship seemed to have been lost forever. Along with it, so many secrets and treasures have settled at the bottom of the ocean. It took until 1985 for the Titanic's wreck to be finally rediscovered using state-of-the-art sonar technology. Ever since then, they've managed to recover thousands of items from the Titanic, and many of them went on display or auction. Things like jewelry, a life jacket, a menu from the ship's restaurant, or even a sample square of carpet from the first-class stateroom have all captivated the public's attention, just like the many stories of the people on board. Scientists have even tried to come up with strategies to get the Titanic back up altogether to properly study it and stop it from getting more and more damaged at the bottom of the ocean. Some have suggested filling the wreck with ping pong balls to make it float, while others even considered injecting it with 180,000 tons of Vaseline. Another idea was to use 450,000 tons of liquid nitrogen to trap it in an iceberg that would float to the surface. But they eventually had to let go of all these potential strategies since the Titanic is way too fragile to ever be recovered. The Titanic may be one of the most interesting ships lying at the bottom of the ocean, at least in popular culture, but deep-sea divers have a lot of other stories to share. Planes also sometimes find their way to the bottom of the ocean. Deep-sea divers in Oahu, Hawaii, came across the wreckage of an F-4U Corsair plane. It seems to have crashed into the ocean in 1946, as it didn't have sufficient fuel. If you can dive deep enough, you might even stumble upon statues and lost artifacts, like those found in the world's only underwater archaeological park off the coast of Naples, Italy. It features the ruins of the ancient Roman city of Baia. The underwater statues found here are breathtaking, to say the least. In an ironic twist of events, some of the equipment we intended to use to get us to the moon was lost at the bottom of the sea for a very long time. But how did that happen? Beginning from the late 1960s and ending in the early 70s, many Apollo rockets were launched to orbit the Earth and the Moon. When reaching altitudes of about 38 miles, the first portion of the spacecraft, including the engines, needed to separate. People thought these components got destroyed or lost forever. But were they really? In 2012, a team of specialists discovered a bunch of rocket engines 14,000 feet off the coast of Florida. They have since gone through a 2-year renovation plan and are now on display at Seattle's Museum of Flight. Can you imagine stumbling upon a whole city underwater? Back in 2001, a lost city was discovered in the Gulf of Cambay, off the coast of India. Some archaeologists believe it to be the oldest city in history. By comparison, it's almost the size of Manhattan and features massive walls and even plazas. They stumbled upon pieces of sculpture, artwork, and even what looked like ancient wooden furniture, believed to date back up to 9,500 years ago and 5,000 years older than any city previously discovered. Okay, how about an underwater river? I can't even imagine what that would look like, but some deep divers claim to have seen it south of Tulum, Mexico. Is that even possible? Well, not really, since the Cenote Angelita Cave is not a true river, but a very special type of optical illusion. It's formed by a halocline, meaning a cloud of hydrogen sulfide at the bottom of this underwater cave. Turns out you can actually swim right through this cloud, which makes you feel like you're swimming through a flowing body of water. Not all things discovered underwater are inanimate objects. Some of them are actually quite scary sea creatures. A jellyfish might not be on your list of things to look out for if you can avoid the stings. But this giant one, also known as a lion's mane jellyfish, is the largest known species of its kind. In all fairness, you'll only uncover it if you happen to dive into the waters of the Arctic, Northern Atlantic, and Northern Pacific Oceans. You surely won't miss it, since it stretches across 120 feet from the top to the bottom of its tentacles. When it comes to deep-sea diving, a lot of people are looking to discover some lost treasure. One diver was lucky enough to have hit the literal jackpot when he came upon nearly $1 million worth of treasure on the bottom of the seabed. That was back in 2015, when this lucky diver was swimming just off the coast of Florida. What did he find, you might ask? Well, about 51 gold coins, 40 feet of gold chain, and a rare single coin that was tailored for the King of Spain, Philip V. Speaking of people looking for lost treasures, divers also sometimes found pirate ships. They discovered one of these pirate shipwrecks in 2015 off the coast of Colombia. It dates back to the 18th century. The value of this forgotten ship was estimated to be between $4 billion and $17 billion, as it contained treasures, precious stones, gold, and countless other really valuable items. By comparison, a whole island in the Bahamas is up for grabs at $75 million. A computer is the last thing you'd ever expect to discover underwater, right? And this was no regular computer, but an ancient one. And yet, someone stumbled upon it between 1900 and 1901 on the spot of a shipwreck located off one Greek island. Researchers believe this weird stone contraption to be the earliest form of a computer. It was designed to serve many purposes, such as predicting astronomical positions and eclipses on the calendar. Since humanity lost most of the technology used back then, it was wonderful to rediscover it so many years later. It let us piece together many of the ancient Greeks' accomplishments. The computer is now at the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, should you ever want to check it out in person. This has to be one of the most mysterious places on Earth. It's called the Mariana Trench, and it's the deepest part of the Earth's oceans. We really don't know how deep it is, since it's so difficult to measure. But it's somewhere around 7 miles deep, and 5 times longer than the Grand Canyon. They first studied this massive underwater hole back in 1875 using a weighted rope. Back in 2012, a Canadian film director named James Cameron reached the bottom of the trench in the submersible vessel Deep Sea Challenger. Some of the most bizarre creatures on the planet call this place their home, including the Dumbo octopus, the sea cucumber, and the goblin shark. The Mariana Trench took its name after the nearby Mariana Islands, which are named Las Marianas in honor of the Spanish Queen Mariana of Austria. It's raining cats and dogs, literally. Things falling down from the sky can be pretty unexpected, so here are some examples. Residents of Texarkana, Texas, once had light rain and fish shower. No need to go fishing out in the sea. The fish literally falls down on your head. In fact, animal rains are not uncommon. Waterspouts or updrafts occurring in different corners of the earth sometimes carry small creatures up with them. Those could be crabs, frogs, or indeed, fish. A waterspout is generally a whirlwind that picks up water and grows in size until it connects the surface of the water and the clouds. Lightweight critters living close to the water surface often get caught in the vortex and carried up and away. Thunderstorm clouds are constant companions of waterspouts too. When the storm reaches a landmass, it starts slowing down, having nowhere to take the new energy from. It slowly subsides, the atmospheric pressure drops, and the thunderclouds release the water in them, along with the unfortunate small animals and fish. Sometimes it's just a few frogs frozen from the cold up above, but at other times it could be hundreds or thousands of creatures raining down upon the land. A much more unusual rain once happened in Oakville, Washington, and it's still waiting for someone to explain it. The rain clouds looked perfectly normal, but the rain they released was anything but. Translucent jelly-like blobs fell on the town, covering a total area of about 20 square miles. Each of them wasn't larger than a grain of rice. Researchers who studied these raindrops claimed that the gooey blobs contained human white blood cells. Some believe they might have been evaporated jellyfish resulting in rain, or waste from from a commercial airplane. Now this kind of rain is what I'd like to see someday, a money shower. One such event occurred in a small town in Germany. A woman was driving when she suddenly saw banknotes swirling down from the sky, so she hit the brakes. She went out of her car and later said she managed to collect quite a large amount of money, after which, as any responsible citizen should, she turned it over to the police. Strangely, when the officers came back to the scene with the woman, they couldn't find any more cash, although she claimed she hadn't been able to collect everything. There's still no explanation for the event, but certainly no waterspout could have caused that. A pretty unpleasant kind of rain happened back in 1876 in Olympia Springs, Kentucky. It was a very local kind, too. Mrs. Crouch said that she had been making soap outside her home when pieces of raw meat suddenly started falling down from the sky around her. Some of those chunks were pretty massive, reaching over 3 inches in diameter. Local newspapers reported that 2 people who decided to remain unknown tasted the meat and concluded it was mutton or venison. Months later, scientists decided to find out the truth behind the strange event. It became a matter of heated debate until one of the researchers came up with the most reasonable conclusion. The meat rain must have been caused by vultures flying over the town at the time. These birds sometimes regurgitate food right in the middle of their flight as a defense mechanism, or to make their bodies lighter to fly faster. And that must have been what happened right over Mrs. Crouch's house, unfortunately. Something totally inedible, but no less sinister, rained down on several villages in India in the middle of May of 2022. Huge black and silver metal balls started dropping from the sky, the first one weighing over 15 pounds. Astounded residents watched in shock as it hammered the ground, scattering pieces of itself across the nearby fields. Similar balls later fell in the other 2 neighboring villages. Luckily, no one was harmed during the strange metal rain, but the issue remained. We're on Earth, and it usually rains water here. The local authorities weren't sure what it was about, but astronomers soon voiced a theory that it could be debris from a space rocket. One that fits the description had launched in September of 2021, aiming to put a communications satellite into orbit. Upon its re-entry into the atmosphere, it might have been damaged, causing several chunks of it to detach and fall down on the ground in India. Sometimes it rains birds, too. One such event occurred in Arkansas in 2010. Weather conditions might cause things like that to happen, but there are simpler reasons too. Loud noise and confusion, or even collisions with aircraft. In the case of Arkansas, it was the noise and flashing lights from the New Year's Eve fireworks. The show startled thousands of birds and made them start into the air. They were panicking and disoriented, so they collided with buildings, cars, and trees. Many of them eventually fell to the ground, making lots of people believe it was actually raining birds. Now, if anything could startle me out in the sky, it's a rain of spiders. And if you wonder whether it's a real thing, well, yes, it is. In Australia, spider rains actually happen quite often. They even have a name for this: ballooning. It goes like this. Spiders that can balloon climb up trees and tall bushes, trying to reach the highest point available in the area. When they've climbed up to the very top, they spin their web in such a way that it allows them to be carried by the wind. And there it goes, clutching the strands of the web with its tiny little feet. The brave spider lifts off into the air and flies to whatever awaits it out there. Normally, ballooning goes unnoticed by us humans because spiders don't travel in large groups. You might have a shocking experience when a spider suddenly lands on your face out of nowhere, but otherwise, it's a rare occasion to meet more than 2 ballooners at once. Still, when the weather gets particularly bad, with lots of rain or wind, thousands or even millions of spiders might decide it's time to move to somewhere friendlier and take to the sky all at once. That's when spider rains occur. Those who witnessed the most recent ones back in 2012 and 2015 say it looks like a snowfall. Spiders slowly drifting down on their web parachutes that settle on the ground and turn it white. Remember waterspouts? Well, those things can lift not only fish and frogs into the sky and make a spectacular show of them falling back on the ground. Golf balls sometimes become their cargo too. And I'm not speaking of golf ball-sized hail, but actual balls. The town of Punta Gorda in Florida witnessed a rain of golf balls in 1969. Newspapers reported dozens upon dozens of those things pummeling the ground and buildings for a short while. Since it's a coastal town with lots of golf courses, it wasn't hard to explain the event. A waterspout must have formed near the shore, traveled to some course, grabbed a few dozen golf balls, and then released them over the town. Rain can be pretty refreshing, as long as it's not mud rain. On April 12, 1902, the town of Easton, Philadelphia, experienced an unusual shower. It made all those unfortunate enough to go outside take an actual shower and wash their clothes to boot. The raindrops looked dirty to the eye, and they were. People, buildings, and streets looked really wanting to take a good bath after it stopped pouring. The witnesses reported a considerable amount of dust in the air before the rain started, which probably explains the event. In 2011, a town in Scotland saw another weird rain variety. It was showered with worms. The rain didn't cover a large area. It seems only some local academy students were unlucky enough to get invertebrates falling on their heads while playing soccer. There was a significant change in the weather at the time, so scientists believe it might have resulted from some meteorological anomaly.
A strange lake appeared in India 52,000 years ago. It was formed here literally out of nowhere. I recall it was a Wednesday. Anyway, for tens of thousands of years, people came up with various scary stories about the lake. Some locals believe this place was cursed. Others think that the lake's bottom hides the gateway to the underworld. But those are all legends. The real reason for the appearance of this lunar lake is even more surprising. At first, scientists were sure that the lake was an ancient crater of a long-extinct volcano. It's in a balsam field made of 65-million-year-old volcanic rock. But then, geologists conducted a detailed analysis of the soil and water and found that Lunar Lake had a space origin. Geologists found a unique glass inside the lake that forms only with a strong impact and energy release. 52,000 years ago, a huge meteorite weighing 2 million tons fell into this place. It was almost 6 times heavier than the Empire State Building. The striking power was so high that the volcanic rock melted and turned into glass. Perhaps the bottom of this lake still contains particles of this giant meteorite that flew to us from the distant space depths. Okay, we have a lake created by a space object more than 50,000 years ago. But even this is not the strangest thing about it. In 2020, the locals noticed that Lunar Lake had turned pink. In just a few days, the salt water mysteriously changed its color. Biologists and geologists immediately took water samples to the Scientific Research Center. The detailed analysis showed that the water contained an increased level of unique microbes. They accumulate on the surface and emit some pink pigment. Soon these microbes settled to the bottom, and the lake became transparent again. Also, rains help the water go back to its usual appearance. These microbes color the lake and make the pink plumage of flamingos even brighter. The birds get food from the Lunar Lake and absorb these pink bacteria. Now, Lunar Lake is a popular place among tourists. But this is not the only thing that may surprise you in India. Our next stop is a small village with about 2,600 people located in a hot rainforest. The locals are very hospitable. They welcome not only tourists, but also one of the most venomous reptiles on the planet. King cobras are crawling in almost every house in this village. Locals are happy to see them as if they were their pets. People share water and food with these animals. They even give the reptiles a special corner where they can relax from the scorching sun. Ah, cobras crawl in houses, schools, and even on the streets. Humans and reptiles are used to each other and feel safe. There has never been a case of a cobra attack in the village. It's the only place in the world where these venomous reptiles live in such harmony with people. Now, imagine a town that consists of many little united villages. The residents are all engaged in agriculture. They know how to extract water from ground rocks, and they bargain well. The town has been thriving for several centuries and people live happily in it. Then, one day, everything changes. All the residents quickly pack up their stuff and run away from their homes. Overnight, the town becomes abandoned. It is a real story that happened in the state of Rajasthan in 1825. And still, no one knows why the people disappeared from there. The most popular version says that the cruel local ruler collected large taxes from the locals. Then he fell in love with the daughter of the chief of this town and threatened that he would collect extra taxes if the girl refused to be his wife. Citizens decided to support the woman and her father and left their homes in one day. This town is still empty, but the locals from the nearest cities are afraid to approach. Our next stop is the state of Maharashtra. There's a small village there with very positive people. They go to stores, cafes, schools, and banks. Everything here seems quite ordinary, and you wouldn't notice what's so special about this place. But just wait for the night to come. People go to sleep and no one locks their houses. There are no locks at all in this village. The door of any building is always open here. The owners leave the shops, cafes, and libraries open. When locals go to work, they don't lock up their homes either. They don't hide money and jewelry. The reason for this is the complete absence of thefts. The villagers are sure that anyone can get into serious trouble for stealing. According to a legend, about 300 years ago, after prolonged rains and floods, a large black stone slab appeared in the center of the village. This slab symbolized an Indian mythical creature that watched over the locals. At some point, people stopped locking their houses because they knew that no one would dare to commit theft in that creature's face. In 2015, a police station was opened here, but almost no one has reported an incident since then. The building doesn't even have doors because the police don't keep anyone there. Another fantastic place in India is a village in the state of Assam. Hundreds of locals prepare here for an unusual celebration every now and then. They arrange a magnificent wedding ceremony. They set the table, dress up in beautiful costumes, and bring gifts. And all this for the newlyweds. But instead of people, frogs get married here. Locals hold weddings for wild frogs to summon rain. The incredible thing is that the ceremony looks just like a real wedding. The fun can last all day until late at night. Now, there's one dangerous and inaccessible island in India. You can find it in the Bay of Bengal. It's called the North Sentinel. It's a small piece of land that looks like a tropical paradise. But you won't be able to get there. Since 1956, nobody can travel to this place. The Coast Guard is always sailing around and patrolling the area. The reason for this is the local Sentinelese tribe. This tribe lives isolated from the whole world. They don't know about modern technologies, the internet, or television. For centuries, the Sentinelese have lived on their own, away from civilization. And the people from India want to keep it that way. Anyone who approaches their island is welcomed by the tribe with a flurry of spears and arrows. And it doesn't matter if you're coming by boat or helicopter. Another reason why you can't get on the island is the Sentinelese immune system. The Coast Guard is trying to protect the local tribe from possible diseases and infections that outsiders can bring with them. The locals have no immunity from the flu or even a simple cold. They don't know what that is. Also, there are coral reefs and limestone around the island, which significantly complicates the passage of large ships. Despite all the prohibitions, many people tried to get to the island. In 1880, one officer accidentally discovered this island. He went ashore and found a noble soil ideal for growing coconut palms. The officer also noticed several huts on the island, but didn't dare meet the locals. Explorers and travelers presented the islanders with fish as a gift many times. The locals accepted it, asked for more, but still didn't let them approach their houses. It was also challenging to make friends with the tribe because they communicate in one of the most difficult languages to learn in the world. Scientists and linguists have been studying this language for decades. At the end of the 20th century, outsiders made some progress in building a connection with the tribe. In 1991, a team of anthropologists invited the islanders aboard a large ship. They gave bags of coconuts to tribe members. This may be where the phrase "left holding the bag" came from. Or not. Otherwise, let's just leave these folks alone, shall we?
It all started with the home insurance building that was built in 1885 in Chicago. Just a 10-story building, but it was a revolution at the time. And that was the beginning of the era of skyscrapers. It was constructed using a revolutionary method. The building had an inner skeleton made of steel, which allowed the walls to be thinner and the whole structure being higher than ever. It stood until 1931, when it was demolished to build the Bank of America that stands even today. That very same year, the construction of the Empire State Building in New York was completed. The Empire State is as tall as 10 home insurance buildings on top of one another. That's the construction progress humanity made in just 46 years. The Empire State became the tallest construction in the world and held that status for 39 years. Now, a bit more than a half-century later, the Empire State Building is ranked 53 on the list of the tallest constructions. Humanity has climbed way higher. The tallest building in the world today is Burj Khalifa, located in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. It's 2,717 feet tall, more than 2 Empire State Buildings on top of one another. Even though skyscrapers started out in the United States, they became tremendously popular in Asia. Just to put it in perspective, around 80% of the skyscrapers that exist in the world are in Asia. And in total, the continent has over 7,500 skyscrapers. The country with the most skyscrapers is China, having almost 3,000 of them. Why do they like skyscrapers so much? Well, Asia has the largest population in the world and their economy is booming. So, growing high is a perfect solution to fit as many people as possible in its cities. But close to China, there's also India, having almost the same population. Still, they have 10 times fewer skyscrapers, with their number being a bit over 200, and most of them being located in Mumbai. So why doesn't India build skyscrapers if it's such a great way to accommodate people? Turns out, the country strictly regulates the construction, saying that it's due to health and safety. You see, there's quite a popular urban theory that big structures that accommodate a lot of people lead to higher population density, more anonymity in the city, and lower safety in the territory. So India is trying to avoid it by building low. Problem is that when a city can't accommodate everyone who wants to live there, the cities start growing horizontally. One more thing is that the land and the apartments are very expensive due to their scarcity, so very few people can afford it. This way, India has started to loosen the restrictions recently and is now slowly allowing to build a bit higher. 34 skyscrapers are now under construction. Do you know what other place in the world refuses to build skyscrapers too? Europe. New York alone has more skyscrapers than all of Europe combined. There are just 250 skyscrapers in Europe, and half of them are in just 3 cities. Europe has a whole different reason to resist tall buildings. The history of skyscrapers goes back to just a bit over 100 years ago, to the 20th century USA. The USA is quite a young country, and the cities are still being built from scratch. There is a lot of available land. When the United States were being built, many European cities had already been around for dozens of centuries. There's not much more room for construction, and no one has any desire to take down the Colosseum and put some fancy skyscraper there instead. There was also no practical reason for changing things. The driving force of Asian and American skyscrapers is the booming population of the cities. Also, Europeans are very protective of their city skylines. The story comes to Brussels, the capital of Belgium, which even got the term Brusselization. In the 1960s, there were no zoning regulations and some buildings in Brussels were demolished to make room for more modern buildings to develop business districts. Uncontrollable construction started, and modern buildings were built in random places around Brussels. They had no cultural or historical value, and they didn't fit in the city architecture at all, messing up the city's image. Many architects and people protested, and new laws were introduced restricting the demolition of buildings of historical importance and taking construction under control. Other European countries learned from Belgium's mistakes. Populations across Europe still dislike modern structures. Many cities adopted zoning regulations, and building a fancy glass skyscraper in Europe isn't that easy. Still, cities with big financial centers like London, Frankfurt, or Istanbul require commercial space. So, in some cities, there are several skyscrapers somewhere outside the historic centers, forming separate skyscraper districts. Rome, the capital of Italy and one of the oldest cities in the world, rejected skyscrapers completely, stating that no high-rise will ever appear there. Also, have you noticed that most skyscrapers are made of glass? Turns out, the choice is not random at all, and there are several reasons to favor glass in their construction. The first one is that glass can be pressed in every shape possible, so the skyscraper can no longer be just a plain, boring vertical tower as before, but all of these fancy designs we have around the world now. The second reason is that glass is a very thin material. The walls are thinner and the floors are bigger, providing more inner space, unlike in the pre-home insurance building times. Glass is also transparent. Glass reduces the need for electrical lighting inside the building, so it's also very cost-effective. Even more, glass is temperature and therefore weather-resistant. And finally, it just looks posh, fancy, and modern. So, theoretically, skyscrapers maximize urban space, accommodate more people, and reduce energy use. In practice, everything is a bit less efficient. Skyscrapers have more space between them than lower buildings, so that already means more land used than we imagined. Also, around 40% of a skyscraper's floor space isn't. You're driving along a deserted road. There are lifeless fields on the sides and high mountains in front. You stop near a yellow sign. It says, "The phenomenon that defies gravity." You go a little further, drive uphill, and stop the car. A strange anomaly occurs right there. You release the gas pedal, turn off the engine, and take your hands off the steering wheel. Your car is moving up. You get out of the vehicle and see it from the side. The road rises, and the car rolls further as if the road goes down. You can put a bowling ball, and it will also move against the laws of physics. This place is called Magnetic Hill. It's located 18 miles from the Indian city of Leh. Every year, thousands of tourists come here to enjoy the picturesque mountain landscape and see the unusual phenomenon with their own eyes. There are many legends around this place. Locals believe this road leads to the sky. It draws good people up, and the bad ones get confused and can't find a way to reach the sky. Scientists have a different possible explanation. This hill has a strong magnetic force coming out deep from the ground. It's so powerful that planes flying over this place encounter interference with their navigational devices. Also, many travelers from all over the world reported GPS and compass failures. There may be a source of magnetic force here, but this theory has never been proven. Magnetic Hill is a powerful optical illusion. You think the road's going up, but it's going down. The shape of the surrounding landscape and the mountain horizon change the perception of the road and create an optical illusion. To see the next natural optical illusion, you need to get on a ship and go far away from the shore. You're in the middle of the sea. The sky and sea are divided by a straight line of water. There are no clouds and the sun goes down. You're watching a beautiful sunset and see a bright green flash. It seems as if the sun has turned green, but the effect disappears after 2 seconds, and you see the orange-red light again. You can also observe the green flash at sunrise. This natural phenomenon happens when light passes through the atmosphere at a certain angle. The atmosphere bends the shape of the sun's rays and separates them into different colors. Combinations of these colors look like a green flash. There are several varieties of green flash, and the rarest one is green ray. Immediately after the sun sets over the horizon, a green ray of light releases into the sky. You can observe it when the green flash mixes with foggy air. The next illusion is located in the swamps. It's night. You're driving along a highway between two British cities. The moon is shining brightly, and you're driving off the road to a swampy area. Then you get out of the car and look at the dark green waters. There's no one around except croaking frogs. At this moment, strange orange lights appear in the air. It hangs right over the swamp and flies in different directions. It's like somebody's trying to light your way with a kerosene lamp. For centuries, people have observed this phenomenon and called it fool's fire or spook lights. Previously, people thought that somebody who was in trouble lit a torch to call for help. People walked towards the light and got into swamp traps. Today, science can explain the nature of phantom lights. Bioluminescent fungi and algae grow in swampy places and sometimes glow with a blue color. From a distance, this creates an illusion of little lights. The wind and water shake the algae, and it seems like the lights are flying. Also, there's a lot of plant material in the swamps: leaves, grass, mud, clay, tree branches. This stuff decomposes quickly in damp conditions and releases methane. When methane contacts the air, it ignites and flies over the swamp in the form of a burning ball. This phenomenon is observed all over the world in swampy areas, but the most famous flying lights are located in the desert of West Texas. It's called Marfa lights. A lot of people saw lights the size of a basketball flying over the desert. They have yellow, blue, and red shades. The lights flicker, merge, divide into two parts, fly high. You can see them several times a year under different weather conditions. There's no exact scientific explanation for Marfa lights, but one of the theories says it's the headlights of cars passing on a neighboring highway. The heated air and the desolate flat terrain create the effect of flying balloons. It could also happen when cold air gets over warm air and light passes through them. Many people think Marfa lights appear for the same reason as the lights in British swamps. There are huge reserves of oil and natural gas, including methane, in Texas. It comes out of the ground and fires up. You arrive in sunny California and stop the car at the foot of the Santa Lucia Mountains. Here, you feel as if someone's watching you, but there's no people around. You raise your head and look at the mountains. There are silhouettes of huge people on the peaks. They are 3 to 4 times larger than an ordinary person, and they seem to be wearing raincoats and hats. They just look at you, and you feel their heavy gaze. You sweat and want to run away, but your legs don't listen to you. After a few seconds, the giants disappear. You get in the car and drive out of this place as quickly as possible. This phenomenon is called dark watchers. People first noticed it more than 300 years ago, but still, no one can explain its nature. The most common hypothesis says that the clouds create shadows that fall on the rocks. The human brain draws an image of giants from these shadows. This may be a mind deception. For many years, people have been telling each other about the watchers, so everyone sees what they believe in. Our next stop is Nashville, Indiana. There's a hotel here built in the 19th century. The building is well preserved to this day and still welcomes guests. The name of the hotel is The Story Inn. There are 18 rooms, and each of them has a unique history and is made in a different style. The hotel preserves the atmosphere of the 19th century, so you won't find a lot of modern technologies here. You book a room, go up to the desired floor, and open the door. The room looks old, but cozy and neat. You put your things down and notice an old book on the table. As soon as you open it, your eyes widen. Each page tells about the paranormal activity that occurs in this hotel. You read in detail about each specific strange case that happened in hotel rooms. Behind each door, you can encounter different creepy things. The book contains dates and a detailed description of each strange case. It looks like a report or an administrator's journal. These books had already been here when the current hotel owner bought this building. The owner decided to keep them to attract tourists, and it worked. Fans of weird things often stay at the Story Inn. The most popular story among guests and employees is the story of the Blue Lady. Many people believe that if you light up a room with blue color, the lady will appear. She has blue eyes and leaves blue objects in the room. Sometimes it appears just like that, in the light of day or at night. Of course, that's all legends. But you go to the nearest store and buy a transparent plastic cover for the table lamp. You come to the room, turn off the light, and wrap the lamp with the cover. Then, you draw the curtains and click on the switch. You still don't remember exactly what happened that day at the hotel, but you'll never forget those blue eyes.
You're standing on the red carpet, waiting for the train to come. The Maharajas Express is India's most expensive and luxurious train ride. It's heavy on the wallet, too. The prices can range from $2,900 to a whopping $23,000. This multi-award-winning train has a bunch of extravagant rooms to pick from. It also passes through more than 10 different cities in India. The train finally arrives and you board it. You're accompanied by many friendly staff members that help you with your luggage. They show you in and give you a quick tour of the amenities before leading you to your room. Like every other room, yours has a butler to fulfill any of your requests. The deluxe cabin has a luxury and cozy interior with international safety features. Among them, there are smoke detectors and security cams. The suspension system underneath the railroad car smooths all the bumps, letting you relax completely. You enter a 112 square foot cabin to take a look. The first thing you see is a king-sized bed with high-end bed sheets. It seems to be inviting you to come and take a nap. You have a closet for all your stuff and a large LCD television with a DVD player. But don't worry, there's Wi-Fi as well. There's also a personalized safe to keep your things and documents. Inside the cabin, there's a bathroom with a shower cubicle and hot and cold running water. It's equipped with a hairdryer and even has such toiletries as essential oils. There's probably no need to mention that the bathroom has bath slippers, a bathrobe, and several towels that can always be washed upon request. After going around the cabin, you decide to check the other rooms they offer. The train has 20 of these deluxe cabins, 12 of which have twin beds and 8 king-size beds. There are plenty of staff members for all the passengers, so that you won't feel underserved. You move on to the junior suite and notice that it's bigger than the deluxe suite. This one is 150 square feet and offers the same luxuries as the previous one. All these suites come with air conditioning and a direct interphone to contact any staff member. After you've taken a look around, the butler escorts you to the suite. He opens the door for you, and you immediately feel as if you've set foot in a royal palace. The suite is way bigger than the other 2 cabins. Its size is 220 square feet, and it even has a separate living room. There are 4 of such rooms on the train, and they all come with king-size beds and large panoramic windows to enjoy amazing views. You go inside for a room tour. The cabin has the same features as the others, but the living room has armchairs with side tables to do some reading or work on your laptop. The suite also has a mini fridge equipped with complimentary tea, coffee, water, and snacks. The bathroom has a bathtub to relax or even take a nap in. You're sold. You're ready to unpack and dip in that bathtub. But that's when the butler tells you there's an even bigger cabin. You stop gawking at the walls and ceiling and follow him to the presidential suite. There's just one such suite on the train. The butler opens the door for you, and wow, this 450 square foot mini palace is the most luxurious train cabin in all of India and one of the best in Asia. It has the same features as the other cabins, but you can't take your eyes off that beautifully decorated ceiling and spacious design that makes you feel like royalty. The presidential suite is named Navaratana. It means 9 precious gems. It has 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a living room. One bedroom has a king-sized bed, and the other has twin beds. The living room is furnished with a sofa where you can read a book or relax, and a table for writing. This suite comes with a personal guide and a luxury car. that takes you around whenever the train makes a stop. You put your bags down and sign up for the presidential suite. It's the most expensive cabin on the train, $23,000. The train starts moving after everyone has boarded. You inform the butler that you don't want to be disturbed and ask him to remind you for breakfast at 8 a.m. For now, you lie down on your bed and look out the window at the magnificent views of India. It's 8 a.m., and the butler tells you it's time to go to the restaurant. You leave your cabin, and the staff members greet and welcome you. You walk over to one of the restaurants called Mayor Mahal, which means peacock. It's the national bird of India. You're seated by the window and given a menu. You can choose between international and Indian cuisine. The waiters are on standby, ready to offer you their services. By the way, in case an emergency happens, there's always a team of paramedics prepared to act quickly. The Maharajas Express offers 4 unique journeys to take: the Indian Panorama, the Indian Splendor Journey, the Heritage of India, and the Treasures of India. Altogether, the trips can take you to 12 different destinations. You pick the Indian Panorama, which is a 6-night and 7-day-long tour that begins in Delhi and ends in Mumbai. After breakfast, you head back to your presidential suite and switch on a movie while eating some yummy snacks. The train leaves Delhi and arrives in Jaipur several hours later. After a quick briefing and lunch, everyone heads down to the city to do some sightseeing. The guide takes you and a bunch of other people to visit the City Palace galleries, and later, to have dinner at the Rambagh Palace Hotel. The next day, you can either opt for another tour or have a spa day at the hotel. You arrive in Ranthambore and have a tour around the national park. You come across tigers and other wild animals. After that, you take other tours, including a trip to deserted city Mughal city of Fatehpur Sikri. You head back to the train after a long day and decide to visit the lounge. The Raja Club has comfortable seats with an amazing view of the world outside. You pick a seat, order a drink, and start chatting with other passengers. You even find a fun board game to unleash your competitive side. After a while, some people go back to their cabins. The next day, you wake up in Agra, the city of the Taj Mahal. It's considered to be one of the wonders of the world. Your eyes start gleaming at the sight of it. Everyone gathers around to take pictures with a colossal white marble construction in the background. After that, you can visit more historic sites or have another spa day at the hotel. You pick the second option. It's a one-of-a-kind experience. You're almost all the way through the trip, but not before you arrive at Orcha and hop on a tuk-tuk to explore the city. Then it's day 6, and you're in Varanasi and go see the Sarnath ruins, followed by a visit to the Silk Weaving Center. It's quite hot, so you take a boat ride on the magical Ganges River. You're impressed by the amazing scenery, and in the evening, you experience an exclusive vegetarian dinner at the Brij Ram Palace. You head back to the train together with everyone else. This is the last night you'll spend there before going back home the next day. You've made lots of friends and seen some of the most unique places in the world. You take part in a lavish party at the restaurant, where all the guests and staff enjoy themselves. You wake up the next day in your presidential suite, knowing you'll leave it by 3 p.m. The train is heading back to Delhi. You ask your butler to bring in some breakfast since you feel like treating yourself today. And after packing all your stuff, you head to the restaurant to have some lunch with everyone else. You arrive in Delhi with all your bags packed and ready to roll. The train stops and everyone exits. This magnificent trip has eventually come to its end. And even though it was a very expensive journey, deep inside, you know you'll be back to discover more of India.